Hey, my little sinners and saints. I wanted to address a few things real quick. Fingernails done again. And don't forget, got Dark Side merch down below. If you have an idea that you want on a shirt, just let me know and I can put it on there. And today we're going to be talking about 6 people that disappeared and then reappeared. Let's share the screen. And I would like to wish everyone a Merry Christmas and a wonderful New Year. This will probably be my last video before the new year. I love this tree. Merry Christmas. May you all feel all the love and joy I have for you throughout this festive season and throughout the year. You as having you as my friend makes me very happy. And that's the truth, it does. Okay, 6 people who disappeared and reappeared years later. Every year, thousands and thousands of people vanish without leaving a trace. For the most part, their disappearance remains unsolved until their case grows cold, after countless years have passed by. However, in many cases, they are found again many decades later with stories so peculiar that it leads us to question the mysterious nature of this world we inhabit. Here's a list of some fascinating examples of people who went missing and were presumed dead yet miraculously reappeared. The disappearance of Kamiyah Mobley is going to be number one. On the 10th of July, 1998, Tamara Mobley, who was 16 years old, this is the mother, it's called Case Files. This is Kamiyah. This was her real mother. Shanera Mobley, who was 16 years old at the time, welcomed a vibrant little girl into the world in Jacksonville, Florida, and she was named Kamiyah. Despite her difficult life circumstances, Shanera viewed Kamiyah's birth as an opportunity to turn things around and finally make something of herself. Shortly after, a woman dressed in scrubs walked through the door of 328 and met Shanera, who was with her daughter, and introduced herself as a nurse. But there was more to this than meets the eye. Unbeknownst to Shamara, this particular woman was feeling particularly hopeless that day after leaving her job at Charleston Nursing Home. She was oppressive in an oppressive relationship. She had been deprived custody of her children, and perhaps most distressing of all, she was reeling from a physical and mental trauma of recently suffering a horrible miscarriage. Overwhelmed with postpartum depression, she drove to Florida's University Medical Center and stood outside the nursery for a few moments and peered at the newborns before walking into Shanara's room, Shanara's room where she found both mother and daughter. For hours, the woman remained by Shanara's side, offering her solace under the guise of being a regular nurse. Eventually, she mentioned that she would have to take the infant out to measure the temperature. Instead, though, she stuffed baby Kamara into a leather bag and walked out of the hospital and drove far away where her family members asked about where the baby had come from. She lied about going into labor and giving birth at work back in Florida. Shanara was frantically calling out for her missing baby, while police were able to construct the facial composite of the woman, sorry, construct the facial composite of the woman based on information provided by Shanera and other witnesses. The hunt for Kamiyah's kidnapper bore no fruit, and as the years went by, with no new leads to speak of, what happened to Kamiyah remained a mystery. Following a settlement with the former University Medical Center, Shanera was awarded $1.5 million in compensation due to the hospital's negligence as of Kamiyah's for 18 years of her life. Nobody knew the whereabouts, not even whether or not she was still alive. Labored to cobble together the pieces of her life following the Kumba's abduction. Gloria Williams, that's the woman's real name, the woman responsible for Kamiyah's kidnapping, found that things in her world began to fit back into place, and she broke free of the abusive relationship, regained custody of her children. She got remarried and raised Kamiyah as her own under a new name, Alexis Mango. Mango. It's Manigo. Mango. During childhood in South Carolina, Alexis experienced a surprisingly cheerful upbringing. She was surrounded by family and friends, going to school, playing with her siblings, and regularly inviting friends over. As Alexis grew older and reached the age of 16, she unearthed the shocking secret that was kept by her mother for many, many years. She didn't have a social security number, essential requirement to get a driver's license and find work. It became evident something wasn't quite right. Quite right's band for my older folks out there. It was then that Alexis confronted her so-called mother about who confessed, that she had stolen away the infant through from Williams initially proposed to turn herself in. Alexis rejected the idea. Real or not, she wasn't about to lose the woman that she viewed as her mother. January 2017, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children received 2 anonymous tips that eventually led them to Walterboro. One of them, which came from a friend of Alexis, who had said that she had confessed to them, and other person who claimed they overheard Alexis talking about Gloria not being her real mother. After officers confronted Gloria and conducted DNA tests, it was proven beyond a doubt that Alexis Mango was in fact Kamiyah Mobley. Kamiyah Mobley. You'd think I could read. All along, when she heard that the news, Shanera was filled with joy and even went on to have more kids. The firstborn child never left her mind nor her heart. When the two were eventually reunited, it was precisely the joyous reunion Shanera always fantasized about. After all, Alexis Gloria Williams was her real mother. In the February 2018, Williams pleaded guilty to kidnapping and interfering with custody under state law during testimony at Williams' trial. Shanera spoke of the overwhelming grief she had suffered after having her baby girl stolen from her. As for Williams, she conveyed nothing but remorse in her testimony. Unfortunately, though, for her, this wasn't enough to sway the judge. Williams was found guilty and sentenced to 18 years behind bars, despite what she had done for Kamiyah's refusals to cut ties with her other mother in the heart-wrenching interview 20 years after her daughter's kidnapping. Shanera Mobley revealed that she and Kamiyah were no longer on speaking terms. So that was pretty bad that after all these years, there's a picture of her too when she was little. And that's Gloria Williams. That's a picture of the mom. Okay, our next case is going to be Denise Boller. On January 17th, 1985, 24-year-old Denise destroyed Denise Boller disappeared from her Raymond, New Hampshire abode where her husband arrived home later that day. It took him 6 hours to notice, 6 hours to notice the mysterious note pinned on the refrigerator, which read, "We have got your wife," and the police arrived, and all they could find were fingerprints in the and footprints in the snow, yet no sign of Denise herself after the note was left at Denise's home. No demand for ransom or attempts to contact anyone were made, leaving no additional clues as to who wrote it or their intentions. After having several days of investigation, the police were eventually led to Logan Airport, where they stumbled upon the husband's pickup truck with Denise's Social Security card, birth certificate, and credit cards placed on the front seat. Yet Denise was nowhere to be found. Despite their best efforts, no clues could be found that could explain what happened to Denise or where she could be, have or possibly gone. Her family, whom she had close bond with, strongly suspected something sinister may have happened or taken place to her, and suddenly left her husband with nothing but being the suspect, being involved with her disappearance, and he eventually filed for divorce. Law enforcement investigated the idea that she may have been abducted or possibly killed, yet there was no concrete proof. Supporting this theory excluded them also. It wouldn't be until a few months later, Denise ultimately untimely disappearance, that a new clue was uncovered. The carrier service where she had served as a bookkeeper blamed her for stealing anywhere between $12,000 to $100,000, pointing to the possibility that she had gone into hiding due to financial troubles. In 1986, embezzlement charges were brought against Denise for 7 years against her 7 years later. The allegations against her were dismissed, and the family grew optimistic that she would one day reach out to them. In 2002, Shirley Casey, a private investigator, provided authorities with information regarding a woman living in Florida who fit Denise's description and shared her birth date. Almost 17 years later, law enforcement was once again on Denise's trail, and on May 13th, 2002, she was located in Panama City, Florida, now going by the name of Denise James. Unbeknownst to her family, to her old family, and anyone else who had known her from the past. Denise confessed that she had made the decision to flee after the ex-employer threatened to kill her within 2 days. Furthermore, Denise revealed that while attempting to cover her tracks, she had gone to the Bahamas, California, South Carolina, and Hawaii. Hawaii. With the mystery solved, Denise was finally able to experience an emotional and joyous reunion with her family. The, the disappearance of John Darwin. Now we're going to move on to the next one. This is Denise. That was her husband, obviously. John Darwin. The disappearance of John Darwin on the 14th of August, 1950. He was born in Hard Hall, a vibrant and bustling port town situated in the County Durham, England. 23 years later, John married Anne Stevenson in Black Hall on December 22nd, and then went on to teach science and mathematics for 18 years before later becoming a prison officer one day on 21st of March 2002. John set out on a canoe, there's a canoe, and never returned home. His wife was frantic when she noticed it had gone late and he still hadn't come back home, prompting to call the police and the Coast Guard and launch an expansive search in hopes of locating him the following morning. The paddle John used during his voyage was found drifting in the ocean near Seaton, Cairo. As for John, there were no clues that suggest that he was gone, suggest because he was gone for 6 weeks. The boat was dilapidated and located near North Care in secluded area around the Blue Lagoon, situated by the River Tees. After 6 months of anguish and slowly losing hope of several and stated of his survival and stated all she wanted was to bury John's body as it would enable her to move on. John had moved to different places and he had changed jobs, he changed his name, he got remarried, and come to find out he had all these life insurance policies and it was his quick rich way of getting money. He had like $25,000 life insurance policy on one thing. Altogether, he had probably about $1 million, if not more. And it was all to pay out according to his death. Trying to skip through some of his stuff. But he did come back. Um, he come back hobbling as if he was suffering from some sort of injury to conceal his identity. He would be out in public. He would go out in public with a wig and no one noticed him. And one day there was one of his friends that noticed him and asked if he was John, and he told him no. And that's how the police got on his trail again. He had vanished through the same entrance behind his bedroom wardrobe. That's the thing. He was actually living in his home the whole time. That he had put concrete down so the floorboards wouldn't make any creak sounds. And if people come over, he actually engaged 2 different times in speaking with people that come over by wearing a wig and some kind of facial hair or something. And anytime that they would have like Christmas, anything, he would go in that room and hide. Finally, he got caught. It says, John Darwin then continued to pursue his ambitions to become a multimillionaire. He flew to Pamela, Panama City, where he managed to start a company that later brought him 25,000 pounds Toyota Land Cruiser, along with 50,000 pounds flat after successfully selling 2 properties in Sultan. He started selling houses and making money off of that. And he was doing really well. He invested additional 200,000 pounds into a sprawling estate near Panama Canal, where he planned on turning it into a tourist resort. In the meantime, police had already been tipped off that he might still be alive and living in Panama, and the lies further started to unravel on 14th of July 2006 when the picture of him with his wife's property in a hunting picture. Panama was posted when Panama began implementing new visa regulations. Darwin then knew his identity would be found out. He was actually using his own name And whenever, like years later, he started using his own name to get credit cards and using it to for just like he was living somewhere else and he's supposed to be missing. That's another picture of him. He's got distinctive eyes and stuff. I don't see how people didn't recognize him. That's his wife. Lovely lady, ain't she? Okay, Stephen Kubaki. On a cold winter day in February 1978, 23-year-old Stephen Kubaki, an undergraduate student at Hope College, a quaint and intimate college, Christian college located by the shores of Lake Michigan, inexplicably disappeared without a trace. Stephen decided to go on a darling skiing journey alone, planning to stay 1 or 2 days, but never came back. The day after his excursion, snowmobilers in Sagatuck, I guess is how you said that, noticed Stevens' cross-country skis discarded with a backpack near them, quickly reached out to law enforcement. Upon examining the contents of the backpack, they concluded that it belonged to Stephen, prompting an immediate search and rescue for him. The trail of 200 yards he left in the snow went past the lake's edge, then abruptly ended. This is him. It's a quote. Thought I had a picture of it. He had made it look like he went out on the this lake, this frozen lake, and went into the lake and died. Um, the snow past the lake's edge then abruptly ended. This led investigators to conclude that Stephen more than likely met his fate under a thick layer of ice and drowned mysteriously in Lake Michigan Triangle, spanning Manitowoc, Wisconsin. I am just destroying this. To Ludingburg, Michigan, and down to Benton Harbor, where Stephen had gone missing. This unforgiving landscape of U.S. is steeped in mystery. The Lake Michigan Triangle may not be as famous as the Bermuda Triangle, but it certainly is just as terrifying. In 1891, the 7-man crew of the schooner named Thomas Hum set sail across the lake, and they ended up in their vessel where they had passed away. The vessel went down. It's kind of like a mini Bermuda Triangle where all this stuff just seems to go missing and nobody can ever find anything. So that's what they thought about Stephen, that he got out there and he had went into the lake. A year after his father embraced Stephen, after they had found him and he'd come back, they had a faint memory, recalled having a faint memory of what happened during his absence. He was jolted awake in a meadow along 40 miles from his father's house and 700 miles from Lake Michigan. He was dressed in weird clothes, and beside him was an unfamiliar backpack containing maps that did not belong to him. He was also entirely unaware of events that led up to the peculiar predicament. What is perhaps most intriguing about Stephen's case is he was wearing a t-shirt from Wisconsin Marathon. He remarked in an interview that I feel like I have done a lot of running. As for the last memories, they were of the snow-capped shores of Lake Michigan. The mysterious events surrounding Stephen's disappearance remain an unsolved riddle to this day. Some people some think he simply went into a coma and wandered aimlessly across the country, while others believe he fell victim to the Lake Michigan Triangle, an area with no shortage of an unexplainable phenomenon. Some Wilder theories even suggest that aliens kidnapped him, experimented on him, they probed him. Now, I don't know. I'm just joking, just throwing things in there. And again, reporters questioned Stephen on what happened to him, which he responded that he really didn't recall much of anything, despite of all the remains insist on the fact that there is no mental health issues to speak of. During a later interview, he revealed details of his abrupt disappearance and discussed what might have been behind it all. He reasoned his blackout was due to fatigue and overexposure and revealed that he would be seeing a physician for a checkup, but he empathetically refused any form of psychiatry help or counseling. My father was going to sign over the house to me. I had 3 courses at school and no trouble. I felt I left a romance in Germany. There were no troubles with girls. I had a job lined up in Holland, Sentinel newspaper, presenting Kubaki is alive, well in the Pacific Northwest, where he works as a psychologist. Oh my God. An admittedly amusing twist of fate. Okay, now we're getting down to number 2. Tamara Milgrad. The disappearance of Tamara Milgrad, I'm going to call her just Tamara, on a blissful Saturday morning on September 18, 1971, 15-year-old Tamara and 2 of her closest friends made their way to a nearby city in Melbourne where they renewed Royal Melbourne show where they where the renowned Royal Melbourne show was taking place, an eagerly anticipated annual carnival event. This is a picture of it. And they were brought together by a farmer's market and entertainment and drawing and hundreds of thousands of people annually before that going to the carnival. Tamara informed her fretful mother, Rubel, of her plans to attend the expedition with some of her classmates. When Rubel heard there would be that many people present, she wanted to accompany Tamara and her friends to keep an eye on things. However, Tamara seemed fiercely opposed to the idea, pointing out that she and her friends could look after one another. Her mom wouldn't be interested in the games and give a hastily farewell to her mother. Tamara hopped in the car with her friends for an exciting day and busing expedition. Sheep shearing, horse racing were just a few of the captivating events available. Alpaca displays, poultry competitions, log chopping events, and more were also within arm's reach of the kids to enjoy as they walked around the carnival. Desperately scorning for someone's some for scorning for someone's Tamara's friends had no choice but to frantically call 911 when she went missing. They had turned around, she wasn't there. And in this venue, immediately, I mean, it's humongous. You can see there's thousands of people. And after hours of fruitless search efforts, soon realized, excuse me, that there was no sign of her anywhere on the premises. Without delay, they swiftly alerted Australian authorities to the situation. Police officers escalated the search. Efforts of efforts to encompass nearby areas of the expedition, yet after days of tireless looking for her, there were no sign of the 15-year-old Tamara. After delving into her personal relationships with her parents, police uncovered that Tamara was going through a period of adolescent rebellion, common. Additionally, Eugene Tamara's older brother, said that she was a handful. Before vanishing, Tamara was highly introverted and often skipped school. Um, she would argue with her parents. She became unbearable at times. She escaped through her bedroom window whenever she wanted to leave for days on end, and finally she returned home. Furthermore, Tamara's closest friends informed the police that shortly before she vanished, there was a heated argument between her and her family about going out with her boyfriend. After the altercation, Tamara would be frequently heard talking about fleeing her home and starting a new life. Nonetheless, police began searching for witnesses who may have spotted Tamara. Meanwhile, Tamara's family launched a multifaceted campaign disturbing distributing printouts throughout the streets and shopping malls in hopes that someone may recognize Tamara or have valuable information regarding her disappearance in the ensuing and ensuing months. The police have learned from several eyewitnesses that Tamara was spotted a few days was after the event when she went missing. Some witnesses claim that Tamara had been lurking in the stables at the fair for 2 days following her mysterious disappearance. Yet, after arriving at the premises, police officers found no trace of her and also rumored that Tamara had been working in a bar near the waterfront of the St. Kilda, an area located on Melbourne's southern side. Additionally, a friend of Tamara's alleged caught sight of her at a hotel in Leventon. This was, along with Tamara's complicated relationship with her family, prompted authorities to resume that she indeed departed on her own free will, that she left on her own. Nevertheless, her family refused to give up on her and hired a private investigator to look for Tamara and her whereabouts and the places that she had been seen and spotted and had traveled. They even looked into the rumors to be spotted. Sorry about saying yet returned empty handed every time throughout the years. Despite the passage of time and their daughter's case growing colder, the parents held on to hope that Tamara would one day come back. After 18 years of agonizing over Tamara's disappearance, her father tragically passed away without even finding out the truth about her. 2010, Melbourne launched its Missing Persons Week, and among the stories shared Tamara's in 2015, a woman stumbled upon Tamara's picture while browsing through the AFP missing person website and saw a woman that looked an awful lot like her own mother, and the only difference from her mother and was the name. It was Katrina Russell. Katrina Russell suffered the loss of her mother in a car accident in 1976 when she was about a few years older than when she was about a few years old. Later in life, Katrina found out that her father and mother never wed, as for some reason her mother couldn't give a birth certificate. This piqued Katrina's curiosity and began looking in for answers regarding her mother's real identity and the remarkable similarities between Pauline Tammy Russell, her mother, and Tammy Milgred. Apart from sharing the same birthday and resemblance, was also uncanny. Katrina reached out to the National Missing Persons Coordination Center and told them that she thought that the woman in the picture could be her mother. Unbeknownst to her, the information she was about to discover would alter her life in a monumental way. To determine if Pauline Tammy Russell, in fact, was Tamara, the family was contacted and DNA samples was taken from the siblings and collected and analyzed by an expert from the Victorian Institute of Forensic Medicine, who verified that the DNA sample provided was a match with Katrina's own genetic material. After astonishing 44 years of not knowing what happened to Tamara, her family was at last able to uncover the truth. Not only did Tamara survive all the ties with sever all the ties with her previous family, but she moved elsewhere in Victoria and changed both her age to 18 and named to Pauline Tammy Russell. Having two kids afterwards became tragically losing her life before tragically losing her life in a car crash. After 4 long decades, Tamara's family finally got the closure that they needed and they could stop searching for their daughter. For Tamara's now 90-year-old mother to discover, that's the mother, to discover what had become of her daughter, finally learning the fate of her beloved 15-year-old child, may have proved comforting and some extent. Tamara's family was finally able to leave the past in the way, and the bittersweet outcome ensured as Tamara, Tamara's family welcomed her into the fold with open arms. Okay, our last case. Dun, dun, dun. Lucy Ann Johnson. Lucy Ann Johnson. Lucy Ann Johnson's formerly Lucy Ann Carville was born October 14th, 1935 in Skagway, Alaska. Lucy lived out her early childhood in the cities of Bennett and Pennington before her family moved to the Yukon community and the Carcass, mess that up, where when she was 8 years old. It wasn't until 1953 that she left, it's got to be that word, Carcross. However, after doing so, there wasn't much contact between Lucy and her relatives. In 1954, Lucy met Marvin Johnson. The couple fell in love and soon tied the knot before relocating to Surrey in British Columbia, Canada, where Lucy found a job at the hospital. Marvin worked on a tugboat, and together they made ends meet for their two children, Linda and Daniel. Life working on the tugboat could be full of hardship that Marvin sought refuge from via alcohol. He used to drink a whole lot. Before long, already short tempered, Marvin no longer had control over his actions and would often lash out and sometimes even assault Lucy. Linda's mom, Linda, Lucy's daughter, later mentioned that she didn't recall her father being so explicitly violent, but he implied he was physically abusive towards her mother. One day in 1961, Lucy suddenly disappeared without a trace. However, it took Marvin until 1965, 4 years later, to report her missing, 4 years after she had been gone. It was only after the police confronted him about receiving an anonymous tip from one of the neighbors who was worried that Lucy had been gone for such a long time. Marvin reaffirmed that the neighbor had already told him about Lucy being gone in 1961. Initially, authorities suspected foul play when one of the neighbors recalls seeing Marvin digging in his backyard. However, upon inspecting the premises, police officers failed to uncover anything, meaning that there was insufficient proof to accuse Marvin of murdering his wife. In the case of DNA samples from Lucy's kids were taken and would later routinely be evaluated for similarities in identified bodies that had not been identified yet. Even found after his wife had been gone for some time, Marvin became reluctant to utter her name. Later on, remarried and prohibited Linda and Daniel from mentioning their mother in the capacity of whatsoever. Unfortunately, Lucy's son, Daniel, passed away in his late teens after Linda, despite her mother's disappearing when she was only 17 years old, went on living a fulfilling life, later marrying and becoming a grandmother of 10 in 2013. Lucy's disappearance went on to become one of the Royal Canadian Mounted Police oldest and most enduring cold cases. 5 decades later, Linda, who in 1950s, who was in her 50s, now slowly began reassigning herself to the fact that Lucy was gone forever. But before relinquishing all hope, she decided to try something no one thought that would work. Hoping to locate her mother, whom she knew was from Alaska, Linda placed an ad in the Yukon News. The advertisement contained Lucy's full name, as well as her birth date and birthplace, and the names of her parents. This was, by all means, a last ditch effort too. A last ditch effort too. At the very least, to find some closure. What happened next, however, wasn't what Linda was expecting. A few weeks later, an astonishing phone call came from Rhonda Glenn in White Horse, Yukon. Her brother Howard was working when he noticed something profoundly strange about an advertisement which was placed and looking for a woman looking for her mother. And he shared the same name and personal information as on the woman that was named Rhonda. Dumbfounded, Rhonda gave into the curiosity and eventually contacted Linda. As soon as Rhonda and Linda began speaking on the phone, a connection between them was palpable. As the two conversed with one another, they began to slowly realize without a shadow of a doubt that they were related. Excitedly, Linda began to make preparations for a trip that was long overdue and stepped onto the plane in Whitehorse. She welcomed she was welcomed with open arms and a large gathering of family members whenever she arrived. Rhonda's half brother and two aunts were all eagerly awaiting to meet outside the airport in the fenced area among the family, none of them were more excited to see Linda than Lucy, who immediately recognized her daughter despite having never have seen her in 50 years. As it turned out, Lucy Ann Johnson was alive and well in 2013. More than 5 decades after she vanished, she had stayed she put in British Columbia until 1980s before moving to the Yukon Territory after remarrying and giving birth to 4 kids. Lucy explained that her disappearance had been intentionally but rather circumstantially. She didn't necessarily intentionally leave, but she had to, I guess, because the husband and the drinking and all that. So let me see. This is the area right here that she lived for over 4 decades. This is her. Tempted to take her kids, but her Martin wouldn't let her whenever she started to leave. Um, he told her that she wasn't taking the kids, she could leave. Still had to deal with everything that happened, even though it was said that she wasn't mad at her mother and hoped that Lucy would want to meet her great grandchildren in the interview. Linda stated that she still had a lot of questions, but it was mostly hoping for the best and that the family could welcome her into the mother's life while much of the world's secrets remain hidden in plain sight. It's comforting to note that at least some of these mysteries get solved when all the puzzle pieces are put together. What do you think of these cases? If you have any suggestions, leave comments below. If you have any cases that you would be interested in me doing, leave them down below and I will get to them. And I got a little surprise for everybody. This is going to be a premiere. And on the premiere, I will be giving away some memberships. So good luck. And I hope that you are one that gets the membership. Oh, I will be doing a couple. So, but thank you for listening and bearing with me through all of my craziness and my reading skills. And as always, I will see you later. Thank you again, and Merry Christmas and Happy New Year.